All right, so let's do some stretches. Oops, Hitam. Why is Hitam here? Okay, turn on your videos. Okay, stretch. Let's just stretch first. Evo is here. Stretch. And then up. Okay. Okay. And then, very good. Next. Okay. Okay, make sure you touch your fingers together if you can. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That one. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. And then our neck up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm gonna teach you how to concentrate. Close your eyes. And then breathe in. And then breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now I'd like you to just focus on one sound in your room. What do you hear? Is it the fan? Focus on that sound. Are you hearing the dog bark? Just focus on that sound. Okay, focus on the sound again. Close your eyes. If it's the sound of the computer, what does it sound like? Try to listen to it for 30 seconds. Is it difficult to concentrate? Is your mind wandering? That's okay. Bring back your attention to the sound that you're hearing. Breathe in, breathe out. Focus on your breathing. Can you hear yourself breathe? Is your mind wandering again? That's okay. Still close your eyes and go back to the sound that you're trying to focus on. If you're focused enough, you might be able to actually hear music that is very, very far away. Right now, I'm actually hearing roosters crowing. Focus on your attention to the sound that you have focused on. Continue to close your eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. So right now we're just training our minds to focus. It's common for our minds to wander around, wander about, and be distracted, and that's okay. What you need to do is to understand that you can always go back to that one thing that you'd like to focus on. Accept distractions as part of life and understand that there's an opportunity for you to always go back to that focus, to that sound. I would like you to deepen your focus again and try to focus on another sound. It may be the fan working, it may be background noises, whatever it is. Focus on that sound for 30 minutes, for 30 seconds. Sometimes silence makes you impatient, and that's okay. Go back to the sound once again. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay, open your eyes. So that's how you actually maintain your focus. Sometimes it's hard to focus on your lessons, and it's okay. Your mind is meant that way, to be distracted. So always just come back to your lesson. Okay? Okay, now I'm gonna show you my screen. We're gonna be discussing the history of sports. Can you see my screen?
Sir, I have a question.
Yep.
Is badminton a sport?
Yeah. Do you like to play badminton?
Yes, we have badminton right here, right now.
Oh yeah. It's a sport. So
Okay.
I'm gonna show you first your requirement. So today is 24 January. We will be discussing the history of sports. On 28 Feb, hopefully, we can all go to school and we will play some sports at school. But if not, and if you cannot make it, you can take the quiz. And that will be the basis of your grade. Is that clear? Okay. So we will play some sports at school on 28 Feb. So I'll be requesting your parents to bring you to school. But if you cannot make it, or because of COVID restrictions, we cannot make it, we will just take the quiz. Either or, hopefully we can play. Okay, next, let's discuss. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. So, in this lesson, we'll be discussing the beginning of sports, uh, different eras of sport in America, and be able to describe how media has played a role in sports history. From the beginning, in the very beginning, Egyptian sports date back to 2000 BC. So, that is what today is year 2021. So, that's 2000 AD, right? Plus 2000, that's 4,000 years ago. And we will know this because there are wall paintings that indicate that there were sports 4,000 years back. And what we usually see are sports that include wrestling, that means they use human strength, and then bowling, which they use maybe a rock to topple the pins. And then after the Egyptians, we go to the Greek athletics. So the Greeks actually admired the healthy human body, uh, the strength, agility, flexibility, endurance, and that's why you would see that there's actually Olympics, and Olympics is actually our world sports that we actually do every 4 years. Lots of money and lots of pride are entailed in winning Olympics, and that's why when we finally gotten gold, last was it last year that we got gold in the Olympics, and that was a great pride for the nation. So in Olympia, the Olympics started 776 BC. So that's 2,000 years plus 700 is about 3,000, roughly 3,000 years ago that sports actually started. The first Olympics was a one-day athletic meeting. Today, I think sports. I think what's this? Today, sports Olympics take about 2 months to complete, but before it's just one day. And before, it usually just was about running race. Now, extended games were added in the 7th century BC, and what they added was track and field, boxing, wrestling, chariot racing, hockey, and polo were featured in the 6th century BC, and polo is the earliest organized surviving team sports. So let's just take a description of how the Olympics, Greek Olympics, happened in the past. So so mostly they would actually meet in an area like this, and then they would turn on light a fire when the games are about to begin, and then they uh, put this out once the games are finally over. Now, most of the sports that we're actually doing now are sort of originated in America and the West, and Europe. Although I'm sure Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Indonesia would have our own version of games. We didn't really uh, sort of popularize it as much as the West and Europe. So Richard Baxter is a guy that popularized sports. Um, so let's just take a look who Richard Baxter is. He's an English Puritan church leader, and He's also chief of English Protestant schoolmen, and in his ministry, I guess in his ministry, uh, sports actually happened. Lawful sport or recreation, a sport had to be dissociated from traditional revelries. A lawful sport should refresh the participants so that they could better execute their worldly and spiritual callings or duties. That's according to Richard Baxter. Because I guess in the past, sports can be very violent, and it can sometimes, losing can sometimes uh, lead to death. I don't know if you've seen the sport. Um, uh, what's this movie? The Gladiator sport. The Gladiator sport is, I think they actually feed you. That's a car. They feed you to wild beasts. They make you fight wild beasts, or they make you kill each other, and may the best man win. All right. So this is an example of a gladiator sport. Um, Look at this. This is a description where they actually kill for sport. And so, but eventually it became more civilized, and less killing is now happening, and now there are laws of the game. Sports which revolve around play were to be avoided, and unlawful sports, gambling, horse racing, blood sports, football was banned in 1657 and reinstated in 1677. So there's a lot of politics as well involved in sports. What is uh, what is an acceptable sport would also be decided by people who are in power. And then suddenly the concept of fun was introduced in sports. In the southern colonies in America, because they have a less restrictive way of life and they're more relaxed there, they actually included a lot more fun in sports, which include hunting, fishing, blood sports, horse racing, gambling, gander pulling. It's a blood sport which usually took place on Easter Sunday, where the neck of the goose was greased and the animal was hung by his feet from a rope tied to a tree branch, and the men galloped at full speed on their horses and attempted to jerk the goose's head off. So it's a blood sport. Um, then during the 1730s, during the Revolutionary era, this is, I guess, the time as well where America was established, tried to suppress all leisure activities. Republicanism also believed that a successful republic cannot be founded on a state which is founded on idle ways such as sport. So before, in 1730s, there was a change in the thinking of sport. They were saying that, hey, sport is actually very idle. It's not very productive. The First Continental Congress meeting of 1774 did nothing but dampen sporting enthusiasm, and George Washington, the first president of the United States, encouraged his troops to engage in games of exercise for amusement. And that happened during the First Continental Congress meeting in 1774. Then, the fever pitch happened. The earliest known mention of the game baseball was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts in 1792. Then the New York Knickerbockers Baseball Club was founded September 23, 1845. And then you've got all the professional plays. And then now they started building fences around land and charged admission for games when they finally realized that there's actually a lot of people wanting to watch the sport. Next, where are we now? Okay. Talking about baseball, Cincinnati Red Stockings, so nation's first salaried team. Finally, slowly, when rules are being made and standardized, and then people are starting to watch it, and then they're starting to gate the whole thing, then suddenly there's money that's being made in sports, and that's why Cincinnati Red Stockings in 1869 was the first team that is actually receiving salaries. In the Philippines, we don't really earn as much as sportsmen and women, but in the States, uh, this can be considered as a lucrative uh, profession. So success sparked formation for other teams and the national league. Now people started to create a league, meaning a group of people uh, who would play together. Now sports became a national pastime in the 1900s. There's now quest for order, power to managers, rules and regulation, growing popularity. There's already admission tickets, and then there are stars like Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Shoeless Joe Jackson. I don't know if you, for your age, you know anyone who is famous in sports. I guess now our famous Olympian, Armani Pacquiao as well. You know him; he's very famous. But And we have Lydia De Vega in the 1990s. She was the fastest woman in Asia, um, in Southeast Asia, and um, and so the Philippines is also making uh, a name in sports slowly. But what we need to understand is that there's a lot of money involved in making sure that you win a sporting game. If you don't have a lot of money, you more likely also will not win sports, or you would win less uh, in games that matter. Obviously, you've got people from uh, I guess Africa, and they're not very rich. It's not a very rich continent, but they also win competitions because they were actually trained in very hard conditions. So that's another thing that you should consider as well. Now, sporting communities are very important. Sports not only provide ethnics with shared experiences, but experience of playing and watching games could blur status, ideological, and personal difference within ethnic communities. Sometimes when you meet with other people, there's actually misunderstandings that happen. But when you play a game together, suddenly you become friends. So it's actually a means of understanding uh, different societies. And then the wealthy as well develop their own sort of sport. You know, you've got yacht clubs because they're the only ones who can actually afford yachts. You've got they've got so much free time, so they can actually take care of a horse and then play polo. Uh, and then they've got massive land where they can take care of their horses that they use for horse racing, polo, and then they've got a big lawn to play tennis. And the first championship that happened for tennis is in 1881. There were times where in the wealthy community, winning or losing was of no importance, and they played with proper grace, meaning it's just really about connecting and being friends. Then the youth as well. Now you're young. It's a pity because we cannot play a lot right now because of the pandemic. But I guess when you're young, it's actually a great way of really playing. So there's what
I
we.
played badminton with my cousins yesterday.
Oh, you do? Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
So at least you know you still have a chance to play. But obviously, for more organized sports like basketball or volleyball, where we require more people, that's what we cannot do at this point. But in theory, you actually become a little bit more with a good character when you experience play. What they said was humans had acquired a fundamental impulse to play. We are meant to play. Physical activity develop muscles, spur the growth of neural centers in the brain and spinal cords. What they say is that if you play more, you actually become more intelligent and more developed. So do not limit yourself from playing. Play is a very important part of our growth. And then the sports roles in schools. In America, sports, especially if you're in Middle America, sports is actually one of their tools to succeed. They get listed into the national teams and eventually become very, very famous and rich. Uh, Sports as community enterprise. So once you actually become better at badminton, for instance, then you go into the provincial badminton association, and then move into upwards into the national badminton league, and then you get to meet the elite players in badminton. Then media happened, which is the TV. I think was invented in the 20s, and because of that, people are starting to watch sports, and now they converted sports into poetry. They create inspirational stories and stuff like that. Um, and then eventually, at the end of the day, it became what we call an organized society of sports. We don't fight anymore wars. There's some wars, but most likely it's actually a more civilized kind of war. Um, when you actually play sports between nations, and then you tally your gold uh, medals, and based on that, that will also sort of dictate your ranking as a nation. That you actually take care of your people, and that you actually sort of have strong and intelligent people who actually win sports. Okay, any questions? Okay, if there's no questions, see you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.